One moment while people are joining the webinar, I will take a few minutes to let people join the webinar, and then we will get started. Hello and welcome to the Myositis Association's Empowerment Clinic on Musicians with Myositis. My name is Rachel Bromley and I am TMA Senior Manager of Patient Education, Support, and Advocacy. Many of you are aware that legendary British rock musician and TMA celebrity ambassador Peter Frampton has inclusion body myositis. Frampton is best known for such hits as Show Me the Way, Baby I Love Your Way, Do You Feel Like We Do?, which remain staples of classic rock radio. Many of us have watched his myositis journey with interest, but it made me think, surely he isn't the only musician out there dealing with these challenges. How many others who play an instrument, whether professionally or as a hobby, have been affected by this chronic illness? During our support and affinity group meetings, I started to come across them. I listened to their love of music and their stories of adaptation, and this empowerment clinic was born. We are honored to speak with two of the musicians I have met since first learning about myositis. Marilyn McDonald, a violinist about whom the Houston Chronicle has said, sparkling with dazzling virtuosity, has toured worldwide as a member of the Castle Trio, the Smithson String Quartet, the Oberlin Baroque Ensemble, and Ensemble Perot, a group specializing in contemporary music. She is currently a member of the Axelrod Quartet, performing on the Smithsonian Stradivarius instruments. Her appearance reflects her versatility: soloist with the Milwaukee Symphony, concerts at Carrymore Festival, Yale University, the Metropolitan Museum, Alice Tully Hall, Library of Congress, mostly Mozart Festival, and Utrecht Festival. Summer festivals include the Baroque Performance Institute, Colorado College Festival, Fairbanks, Alaska. She is a recently retired professor of violin at the Oberlin Conservatory, where she served for 44 years. She was presented with the Excellence in Teaching Award, and she has an international reputation for both Baroque and modern violin. Let's see. Ms. McDonald was diagnosed with polymyositis around 30 years ago. Thank you for being here, Marilyn.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Susan McLean played in orchestras, ensembles, and toured as a performer and as recording artist after earning her music degree in harp. She was a member of the Recording Music Academy, the host of the Grammy Awards. She also served on the Washington State Arts Commission and held the office of president of Seattle Musician Union, Local 76493, the oldest chartered union in the United States, for 7 years. She realized how special weddings were to her and started her wedding business in 1989. Since then, she has performed at over 3,000 ceremonies. Ms. McLean began having mobility problems in 2015, but was not diagnosed with IBM until early 2022. With COVID, all performing stopped. She has since enlarged her teaching studio solely using Zoom. While she is able to do some live performances, her abilities are affected by IBM. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
All right, thanks to both of you for being here. Marilyn, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your myositis journey, the onset of it, the diagnosis of it?
Okay, the onset of it was quite dramatic. I had been starting with what I think is possibly a usual symptom of the beginnings of lots of different kinds of diseases in this category. That is, I had trouble walking up the steps. I thought, because I was a runner and I was in good shape. And I thought, boy, it feels much more difficult. And I went to a physical therapist who gave me some exercises, and she was a bit scratching her head a little bit about it. And then I began feeling some discomfort in my shoulders. And she said, oh, go to the doctor immediately and get a blood test, which I did. And this all happened within the course of maybe 3 weeks. And I got a message on my answering machine on a late Friday saying, oh, you have an elevated, I think it was CP count. You need to go to a rheumatologist at the Cleveland Clinic. And that was it. Well, it being Friday at 6 o'clock, I think we all know what that terrible feeling is when all the hospitals are all the doctors are beginning to close. So I thought, well, I'll do the best I can. And ironically, I was playing a concert on that Sunday, a concert of music written by women composers. And that was quite a while ago. That was about 30 years ago. And so that was kind of a big deal. Now we've seen lots of concerts like that. Not that it's still not a big deal, but it was really a big deal at that time. And throughout the course of the concert, my poor violin was getting heavier and heavier. It was quite alarming to me on the stage. And I was very sick by the end of the day. And the next morning, I couldn't even walk to get to the bathroom. And I could not lift my arm to try to brush my teeth or anything. I mean, I was really weak. And I was not able to contact the doctor I had seen. I have a confession to make. I had not had a regular doctor except for a gynecologist up to that point. So one doctor was very kind to me and said, okay, you come in before the regular session and I'll take a look at you. And she was very alarmed when she saw the number of my CP count, CPK or whatever that account is, because it was well in the thousands. And she said, I think I know what you have, but I'm going to make a phone call right now. And I was right in the room. She called the rheumatologist at the Cleveland Clinic, and who happened to luckily be walking into work on a Monday morning. And he put me on methotrexate and prednisone right away without doing any tests or anything. And it was 60 milligrams of prednisone. So of course, I think a lot of people who are listening probably know you suddenly have a resemblance to a chipmunk. And I really blew up. And I was unable to work at all for about, I would say 6 weeks. First couple of weeks, like really just lying in bed. And then I came back to teaching. I didn't go back to playing right away. But it was just a big struggle for about 1.5 years. And I had the uncomfortable experience of when I would walk very slowly down the hall at the conservatory, and I was walking very slowly. Some people were very solicitous, and some people would slip into the bathroom so they didn't have to speak to me. And I understood later, I understood it really, what it was all about. But when it happened, it seemed very hurtful to me. And then I had a wonderful thing happen, and I'd like to share it with you if you think it's all right.
Of course.
I had a friend on the faculty who was, it was kind of the wild cellist of the faculty at the time. And I came to school one day, and there were, I would say 10 or 20 posters all over the school. And here's one of them.
Wow.
He made me into a bodybuilder. It was like the early days of computer, and he put my head on top of somebody else's body. And it said, Oberlin's newest fitness queen.
Oh.
Well, I have to say, I learned a lot from that. That like the most important thing was for him to recognize that I still maintained my original sense of humor.
Mhm.
It was a big deal. I saved it. This is one of my most precious possessions. So I improved then. In about a year, I was much better, but I would say it was about a year and a half before I was back to running and biking and everything. And I did very well. And they took me off, the doctor took me off of all the drugs. I mean, I did it slowly, but as soon as I was off of all of them, I got it again.
Mm.
And that was, I could feel it. The same, you recognize that the feeling, particularly in your limbs. And so that was the second time. And it was pretty similar to the first, only I wasn't quite as sick at the very beginning, but it also lingered for about a year. And at that time I was back with the quartet, and we were doing a lot of touring and everything. And that was hard on me, but I slept a lot. I think during all of those years, I slept a lot.
How long we've talked previous to this show, and you let me know it's been how long since you've had a flare?
It has been at least 20 years now.
That's amazing. Is there anything that you think you can attribute that to?
Not really, except that I'm still on drugs. I have been on some amount of prednisone for 30 years. And I, as a matter of fact, I have a new doctor now because my doctor retired, and he is trying to wean me. So I am not only of prednisone, but also of the methotrexate. So I am down one pill in the methotrexate, and I kind of remember the nervous feeling of, will it come back?
Yeah, so it's been so long, you're kind of confident that it's not going to come back, or?
He's very confident. And in my situation, because of my age, he thinks that it's possible I could have, for want of a better word, outgrown it. That it. So we will see.
How long totally did myositis affect you to where it actually interfered with your musical capabilities?
I would say 6 years severely, 10 years peripherally, about 10 years. I got
but you didn't give up.
No, I got it when I was 40. And no, wait a minute. I got it when I was 50. Yeah. Excuse me.
Do the math.
I was 49 years old when I got it. And I remember saying recently that the best years of my life were between 60 and 70. Because between 50 and 60 were extremely difficult. In the course of all of that, my husband left me. And so it was just an extremely difficult time, physically and psychologically, especially because when you're on the stage a lot, you're used to just sort of floating by and having everybody take care of you, you know. And in fact, there was no one to take care of me. And so it was difficult. But I always tried to do one more difficult task every day. Like I would say, I remember when I felt the very first time, which was very severe, I remember how proud I felt of myself when I was able to rearrange all the flowers that I had gotten. It looked like a funeral parlor in my bedroom, I just had to stare at them all day long. And then I remember how you come and pick out the bad flowers, and make smaller and smaller. I remember the first time I could do that. I can remember it so vividly. I can see it today. It was like the one thing I could manage to do that whole day. So then I thought, well, this is a good idea. I will try to do just one thing and maybe a little more difficult or a little different. And I do remember that the next day I tried to make tapioca pudding and I spilled it all over the floor and all over
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but
it took a while.
when you were still trying to perform and myositis was severe in your case, what got you through those performances? Were you worried that you would crap out in the middle of a performance, or?
Yeah, well, first of all, I couldn't do them for about 3 months. For a good 3 months. And then the quartet that I was playing with, they were very understanding as to, how much I could manage. It was interesting in that the first time it was the large muscles close to the trunk, the shoulders and the hips. So walking was difficult and picking up my arms to play the violin was difficult. So I was a little bit slouchy for a while, but my hands were not affected.
Okay.
My hands were good. The next time my hands were affected.
And
the third time I felt it, this sounds very odd, but I felt it going up into my head and face. So it expanded each time.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Let's bring Susan in. Susan, how are you doing?
I'm dealing with dogs right now.
Oh,
They just figured out their way through the door. Now they're out. Okay, good. It's really fascinating to hear you talk, Marilyn, because my experiences with IBM is it's a progressive disease. There've been no
Yeah, I'm so
ups
sorry.
and downs.
There's not really ups and downs.
Yeah, this is so difficult.
It's kind of been, but it's also, I just got my diagnosis this year. I have spent since 2015 trying to figure out and assuming there's just something wrong with me, that I don't work hard enough. I thought that there was just something, that I was a wimp. And that I fell and broke a lot of bones because I fell a lot. And then I thought that my weaknesses were due to my recovering from broken bones. I also thought it might have been that playing harp is a very physical instrument. And maybe I just wore out my body from playing too much because I played a lot. And so I really didn't have an idea there was something wrong with me. I just thought I was a bad person and I was a weakling. And I was thought my technique, I'd become a schlock player after all these years. My dad called me a hack because he said I couldn't play like I used to play. And I just had poor tech. I'd just gotten sloppy. And so, and then I was also in tremendous pain and horrific pain. And went to pain doctors and everyone sent me to PT. And I just had like the medical runaround, like, you read about all the, 7 years of medical runaround and lost tests and telling me it's in my head, the usual. And at one point I went to Yolanda Kononasis's house, friend and house, used to live together. he's a teacher, a really good friend of mine, and I tried to improve my technique. And we went back to technique basics, and I couldn't do the basic conditioning exercises. And then I noticed that I really couldn't push the pedals down. It was really hard. And my friends were aghast. And I had trouble walking upstairs. And the whole idea was, oh, if you don't keep trying and keep doing this, keep playing, if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pushed myself to the limit and still, it was horrible. And I was in tremendous pain. And then about the time, I won't say I was suicidal, but I still hadn't been convinced there was something wrong with me. I still thought I was just a wimp.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit. And then I had seen for a year, I've been in physical therapy 3 times through the sports and spine clinic at Harborview. I'd been through pelvic floor therapy. I'd been through so much therapy, and I was in so much pain. And then I was referred to a pain clinic at Swedish run by Dr. David Hanscom and Dr. David Clausen. And I went there once, and then COVID hit. And they have a whole theory of pain that it's, I don't even know how to say it, but it's not necessarily a mental state, it's a chemical state where your nerves are inflamed and they cause pain. And that you can pretty much, they use this idea of neuroplasticity to get around the pain. That what you should do is envision the life that you want and live it through the pain to the best of your ability, and do all these other techniques that they have with expressive writing, meditation, supposed to exercise 30 minutes a day, aerobics, and a very, very quite a regimen, but something you could do during COVID. And so I did that for 2 years. And I have to say, I had a lot of fun, because the idea that was, okay, I can go ahead and I'll get over this. It was like, okay, all I have to do is work through this and I'll get over it. Just pretend, if I miss some notes in the Prokofiev, don't worry, I'll get them back later. The neuroplasticity will kick in, and I'm a horse rider. And I joined the hunt club. I started doing things that, okay, let's live to the utmost of what I want to be able to do and wait for the neuroplasticity to kick in. But the neuroplasticity didn't kick in. And I fell and had concussions, had some trouble swallowing, and I just didn't feel like when's the neuroplasticity going to kick in? And I also felt what I was doing was very dangerous. That I was in danger of hurting myself by pushing myself. And so in the meantime, had gone to like Feldenkrais and postural alignment, chiropractic, every type of therapy there was, acupuncture, every form of physical therapy there is. And somehow I just thought, I did not think there was anything wrong with me. I just thought it was going to be just a matter of time before I would that the neuroplasticity would make the pain go away, and then I could start to improve. And then my hands were weak and my feet were weak because I couldn't move the pedals. And I just had a meeting with my primary care doctor a year ago. I guess it was a little over a year ago. And I said, yeah, I'm in chronic pain. I've been in this chronic pain group. I have chronic pain. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm in terrible pain. But it's just, I've been living with it for a long time. And I just assume this is going to get better over time. They've checked everything possible that it could be. They've had my spine checked out microscopically. It's not a nerve problem. That's nobody knows why. It's just a chronic pain issue. And I'm in a chronic pain program. But I said, but the thing that's bothering my hands and feet are weak. And he said, well, let's take you to a hand therapist. I said, oh, I've been through her before. Well, that was a few years ago. Let's go again. So I went to her again, and she measured my wrist strength, and the normal wrist strength, this is in September of 21. The normal wrist strength is, for a person my age, average, not being a musician, not being an athlete, is 77 ounces that you can press on this machine.
Mhm.
I could press 4 in each hand, and that was the most I could do. And I could just
Wow.
see on her face. And she said, "And you're having problems with your feet too?" I said, yeah, I can't push my pedals down. I trip, I fall. I just don't think this isn't normal. And
Mhm.
then surprisingly, that was the first time I began to think that, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. But then they sent me to have an EMG. And then she said they were going to send the results over to neurology, and that I would be getting a call from neurology if there was something wrong. So I waited, and there was no call from neurology. And about that time, I was on Prolia because I have osteoporosis.
Mhm.
And I told my endocrinologist what the doctor had said, and she said, well, you're a little thin. And she said, you're not off, you're still within normal, but yeah, I think you could put on some weight. You clearly need some muscle.
Mhm.
And so they sent me to a dietitian, and she put me on this diet of lots of fat and protein to try to build muscle.
Mhm.
And I gained over 10 pounds, which I've not lost. So none of my clothes fit. And it
Well,
wasn't
how do
fun.
you, with those challenges, how did you continue to keep playing? Did you change what songs you played? Did you?
No, it's COVID. So there's no performing anywhere.
Okay.
All of a sudden, nothing. No weddings, everything's canceled. No
Okay.
performances, no assisted living performances. No, I have a little band I play with, trad band. Everything stopped, even teaching stopped. And so there's nothing going on.
Hmm.
And so I thought, well, maybe I'll stop playing for a while, and maybe I can, instead of playing, maybe if I give myself a rest, maybe I need a rest, maybe I've just worn myself out. So when COVID hit, I just said, I give up. I'm not going to play for a while. And I took several months off of not even touching my harp.
Hmm.
And then somehow somebody called me and wanted me to do an online concert. And I thought, well, yeah, I need the money. I can do an online concert. So then I, well, I better start practicing if I'm going to do an online concert. And so it was for Robert Burns Society, and they wanted basically a lot of Celtic music and Robert Burns music, which is not chromatic. It doesn't require a lot of pedal changes. So I practiced things that didn't use foot pedaling a lot.
Hmm.
And I was surprised. I couldn't believe how just being off playing for like 4 months, really, it was hard to get back. And I thought, this is, I thought I could play the Pachelbel Canon backwards, upside down in my sleep and underwater. And, I thought it was like the one go-to thing that I could do at any time for 3 lifetimes ahead. I was going to be able to play that, upside down and backward. And I found I couldn't play it.
Hmm.
I couldn't, my fingers wouldn't reach the chords, and I didn't have the tone. And so I started, for this little concert I did, I refingered lots of things, and I played a smaller harp. So I kind of adjusted things, and I was making it an informative concert about Robert Burns, and putting it in a historical context as well for the Scottish Society. So I put together a nice little concert, and it was a great concert. And it went off well, but I was not certainly playing particularly well. And then I found out about the hands, and then the dietitian making me gain this weight, and then the weight did not increase my muscle mass or strength at all. And there I was fat, eating, it was kind of really depressing. And then I finally thought, well, what happened? What's going on? And I called and said, what were the results of that EMG? What did the neurologist say about it? And I found out that I called, this is in now January. I was still attending the pain group, which had gone to Zoom with Dr. Hanscom. And I was still trying to do the thing with the neuroplasticity, live my life to the full. And at the first week of January of this year, I had a very bad concussion. I fell, man, did I fall. And I thought, this is not really, I'm doing all this stuff that's kind of dangerous. And in my condition, is this really what I should be doing? And then Dr. Hanson, oh yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it. Don't worry, and you've got to keep up the exercise. You can't cut down on the exercise. You got to keep exercising 30 minutes of aerobic exercise a day. And I was like dying and in so much pain. And finally I thought, I'm going to see what happened with the EMG and the neurologist. And I found out that the report had never been sent to the neurologist. It was lost. And then I got mad. I got really mad. And what did I do? I talked to Dave. I texted David Hanscom, who's a wonderful person. I learned so much, but he said, and then I went to my, I was seeing a postural alignment therapist at the same time. And I told him about my concussion, my bad fall, all the stuff I was doing. And he said, go to emergency. There's something wrong with you. Go to emergency. And I thought, well, I've been dealing with this for 7 years, COVID emergency. It was really an emergency. And so I called the neurology department, and then I think I called a patient advocate at Harborview. And I just said, this is too weird. I'm not getting the treatment I need. Things aren't going well for me. And I need to be seen now. This is serious. So Dr. Hanscom, my pain doctor, said, I'm a spine surgeon. What you're describing sounds like stenosis of your cervical vertebrae. And I said, everything's been looked at many, many times. And he said, well, this has been going on for 7 years. Get it looked at again and go to this doctor who's a friend of mine. So I went to that doctor. I got permission, blah, 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 blah. And at the same time, I made a appointment the same day with the neurologist, and I wanted that the MRI and the X-ray of the cervical part of my spine be sent to the neurologist that day. I wanted answers right then, and I had a patient advocate. I was on a mission. So I saw the spine surgeon who did the cervical vertebrae. I said, there's really nothing wrong with you there. And then I went to the neurology clinic, and I saw a resident who was a first-year resident. And he didn't know what to make of it, but he was intrigued by everything. He probably spent 4 or 5 hours with me.
Wow.
And, he was like, because he was a first-year resident, he was obviously, it's a learning teaching hospital. And he was testing all my joints and looking through all my records and everything. And he kept saying, I'd say, are you Dr. House? He says, no, I'm not a heroin addict. And he said, and then he'd go off and he'd talk to the head of the doctor. He'd come back and do more tests. And then he'd go to his computer, and then and finally he said, oh. And I could just see, he said, oh. And then he said, excuse me. And then he went and talked to the head of the department, and they were gone a long time. And I was there all day. And then they came back. And then the head of the department or the head of the neurology thing, he said, here, watch this, do this, do this, do this. He said, watch what I'm doing with her head. And he said, see, see, see. And he said, oh, yeah, I see, I see. They weren't throwing me into anything. And then they said, okay, go ahead and put your clothes on. We'll come talk to you in a few minutes. So I put my clothes on and I waited a long time. And then they both walked in and they handed me a sheet of paper and they said, you have IBM.
Huh.
And I said, what? And they said, yeah, you have IBM. And I said, we're going to do some blood tests, but clinically you present so perfectly that, we're going to do some follow-up tests, but you have IBM. And
How did getting a diagnosis make you feel?
well, I'd never heard of it before. And I didn't
But at
know.
least you knew it wasn't you. It wasn't in your head.
Yeah, but I just still wasn't, I didn't, it wasn't very reassuring.
Hmm.
I wasn't reassured at all. And I didn't feel very supported by the doctors. They just handed me and said, you have IBM. And then they said, we're going to go get a blood test. We're going to do a blood test, but these blood tests are not very accurate, but they can give us, if they come out and they have so many false negatives. However, it's a positive, then it's conclusive. But if it's a negative, then we're probably going to do some more tests. We're going to go on. You may need to have a muscle biopsy, but even a muscle biopsy isn't very indicative. And they said, but you clinically present 100%. We just are sure you have it. And then I just went out home and kind of read up on it and about felt sick to my stomach. I didn't know what to do. And then I had the blood test. And then the next day, the results from the blood test came back as IBM. And then I thought, well, I should be hearing from my doctor. I should be hearing something. And then during this time, I was set to go to a Woodbrook Hunt Club horse jumping camp. And I was set to go. I decided I'm going to go to the camp anyway, even though I have this diagnosis. I have no idea anything. And so I went to the camp, and then it was like the last day of the camp, I got a call from the resident, the guy who'd spent all day with me, the guy looked like he was 15 years old. And he said, well, yeah, your blood test came back positive. I said, I knew that night. I said, why are you calling me almost a month later? I could see of my chart. My chart came in that night. I said, yes, it was positive. I do have IBM. And he said, how could you get your results before us? And I said, well, because I'm on my chart. And I said, I'm really not, I feel like, wow, you are so behind the ball here. And I said, I'm not really happy about this. I'm not really happy about being given this life-threatening diagnosis, this terrible thing, and then no here, no nothing. And, why didn't you call me when you got the results? Why did I get the results a month ahead of you? And why has there been no follow-up? And in the meantime, I had joined the Myositis Association and joined the Facebook page. And I found it just overwhelming. And then I was very upset with kind of the people around me, and their response was they'd never heard of it either, so it didn't exist. And here I am out riding horses, and it's kind of like, and I even took a trip to Lion and Healy Heart Factory. I was having a lot of trouble walking, but my friend, the friend of Yolanda Condonasis, was thinking that I was overreacting, and he kind of didn't think that it's kind of like I wasn't getting, nobody believed me. And I asked my sister if she would join the caregiver portion of the Facebook page of the Myositis IBM page. And she did, but then she never read it, never followed up. And she's been terrible. Everyone's been terrible. I have not had a really good support system. And then I did find out that I told Dr. Hanscom. He said, I've never heard of it. I never heard of it. I don't believe it. Let me see the results. And so then I forwarded the results from his surgeon who'd done the cervical and the blood tests to him. He said, I've never heard of this. And that's the last time I heard of Dr. Hanscom.
Hmm.
And so then months go by and I hear that there's this, then this doctor that I had seen, the one that had diagnosed me, called and wanted to set up an appointment with me. And by that time I'd heard of Dr. Weiss, who's also at UW Medicine, and he's kind of the IBM guy in the West Coast. And I said,
Mhm.
okay, I'm really not happy with the first guy that I saw. I just, and then, then the other thing that happened was, if you want to, sounds like a horror story, but after I got the IBM thing, he said, I am going to refer you to a physical therapist. So I did get an appointment with a physical therapist, but on my way to the physical therapist, you have to, at the time in Seattle, there was a bridge out in West Seattle. It was a big deal. What should have been a 30-minute drive was about an hour and a half drive, because you have to go all the way around to avoid this bridge. And driving has always been very painful for me, but I drove. And then, of course, you have to go in the underground parking, and then you have to walk miles under things to get to the hospital. Then you have to go miles down to the other end of the hospital, then up to a 3rd or the 4th floor, then miles down the other way. And I fell on the way to my physical therapy appointment, and someone picked me up and put me in a wheelchair. And then I go to my physical therapy appointment. She says, oh, I can't see you because we can only see ambulatory people.
Uh,
And then in the meantime, I'd seen that same doctor rode the elevator with me. And I said,
mhm.
hi, and he didn't even look at me. And that made me mad. And so then later he called and he said, how is it going? And I said, I don't want to see you. I'm really angry at you. And I really feel that you did a disservice to me. And by not, by waiting for over a month to confirm my diagnosis when I'd had it in 24 hours, by not following up the fact that there's been no follow-up at all, none.
Right.
And there's been, I'm going back to the patient advocate. And then he was upset with me, but I will say he sat and listened to me vent for 2 hours.
Wow.
And then we got in a fight about what the thing that had showed up on my chart really meant.
Mhm.
And he said it didn't mean what it looked like it meant. And I said, well, it looks like I sent it to other doctors and they concurred with me that it meant what I thought it meant. And you're telling me it's different. Why didn't you call me to tell me what it meant? If you knew
Mhm.
that I had these results within 24 hours, why did, And so then I basically really let him have it. And
Mhm.
he took it quite well, and he wrote me a personal letter. He signed it with his first name, Eric. And I thought he did the best he could for an apology. But it
That's
was
good.
bad. It was really poor service. And then I
Well,
went,
let's talk about the music.
okay, the music.
Um,
Sorry about that. I'm sure that everybody has their story of the doctors. Anyway, now I'm with a different doctor. So the music. Because of the COVID, I have not been asked to perform a lot.
mhm.
And then finally I did get more teaching through Zoom.
Mhm.
And I actually had more students through Zoom than I had prior to COVID. And I continue to only teach on Zoom. And now people still want to just do Zoom. Although
Mhm.
I did have a recital for my students on Saturday in person. And that was tricky. With my playing, and this is just about my whole life in general, it's downhill.
Mhm.
And I can't play the way I used to play.
Mhm.
It's just not there. And do I quit or do I not quit? I have decided that I keep this. I've had this one assisted living place I've played at for 8 years. They love me. I love them. I play in memory care. Then I play in the dining room. I can play hymns. I can play simple pieces that, not the Debussy, not the modern stuff, not the, I can play simple things and they love it. I
Mhm.
also switched from playing my big concert grand pedal harp to a smaller size harp. And now the other thing that is, I cannot move a harp at all. I'm used to moving a concert grand all around Seattle, 3-4 times a day, up and down,
Mhm.
and now all of a sudden I can't lift hardly a thing. I can't even lift my amp. So I have
Didn't
to,
you say that there was a possibility of adaptive technology for your pedals?
yeah, there is, but I'm not going to go there because it's going to just be temporary.
Ah,
Be very expensive and it'll be temporary.
yeah.
So I'm thinking about it. Some people have said that, yeah, Lion and Healy can make my pedals so that they are much easier to move.
Mhm.
And it may give me more pieces. I'd like to play my Debussy a little longer, but then it will mean that my harp, value of the harp will go down. It'll have been modified. It's only temporary.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of leaning against that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So my harp might be gone several months to have it modified. During that time, who knows what could happen to me. So I'm just more or less living day to day with my musical abilities. I wanted really badly. I think the last gig I played right before COVID was I did this wonderful gig on New Year's Eve of 2019.
Mhm.
And it was like practically snowing out. It was a lot of work. And I just remember how happy I felt that I did it, and I did it by myself. I'd moved my concert grand and I'd been in a lot of pain and I'd managed it. And at that time, I thought the neuroplasticity was going to kick in. There's nothing wrong. And so this year I got a call to do another New Year's Eve gig. And I waited till this morning to answer it because I know that I can't play by myself. But I thought if I could get my goddaughter, who's also a harpist, to play it with me and split the gig with me, she could come help me. She could play part of it. I could play parts that I play well, green sleeves, the easy stuff that people love. She can, together we could be a good partnership.
Mhm.
But she never got back to me. She's always saying she's a great harpist, but she's not good at marketing and she's not good at doing what you need to do, getting back to your clients immediately, doing all the follow-up. When
Mhm.
someone calls you and they want you to play a gig, they need to hear back right away or they're going to move on to the next person on the list.
Right. Mhm.
So I wanted to do it, but I haven't heard from her.
Mhm.
So I found out now they've hired somebody else.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So I'm kind of feeling like I don't have I'm kind of out in left field. So I'm just not sure. I'm not sure at all what's going on with me professionally. I teach well. Now, another problem I'm having is because of the IBM, my vocal cords are coming apart
Mhm.
and my speech is getting gravelier and rougher. By the end of the day, I have a hard time speaking. So I just got this Madonna mic a week ago. Tomorrow I have another. I had one appointment with a speech pathologist that didn't do well. So they put me with an opera singer who thinks they're going to be able to use, even though I have damaged vocal cords, there's some resonance tools that I could use that'll extend the life of my voice. But one of the things that I can do is use this Madonna mic so that I can keep my decibels down instead of trying to speak over Zoom and playing the harp while I'm teaching. So that's
Well,
like
that's good adaptive technology.
so that's one adaptive thing. The other thing is that I always play with an amplifier.
Mhm.
When I'm playing at these little assisted livings, even in memory care, I'm taking my amplifier. My friend goes with me that I hire and pay him a lot of money to go and set me all up, and then I can just barely touch the strings and they make sounds. And I'm not a good player, but I'm a professional performer, so I'm having to rely on my performance skills rather than my technique.
Mhm.
So
Are you still finding joy in playing?
well, yeah, I am. That's the mystery. I'm working on the Bach unaccompanied suites. And every night, I don't know, this is me, and my mother was a professional cellist. And I swear to God, I get more like my mother every day. And every day of her life, she played. And I think that as long as I can play, I'm going to be playing. I play 45 minutes a day, and every day I just do it. And even though I sound like shit, and even though I can't, one finger doesn't really make a sound very well, I just still enjoy, especially Bach, or just some things, you know. I still, for some reason, I still am going to do it probably till I die.
That's
And
wonderful.
I still will probably keep. I had my students play a recital at the music school I teach at, and they were spectacular. And that was very gratifying. And I'm still planning to play at the assisted living place that I've been playing at forever because they love me and I love them. And again, I'm a performer as well as a musician, and that skill is still there.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Susan. We really appreciate you sharing your story, and same to you, Marilyn. Do you have any last words, Marilyn?
I liked the idea of playing every day. I mean, I'm quite arthritic now, especially in my hands, and so my performing career is done. But I just had a lovely chance to play with a also retired pianist in town, and so I try to do little things, and I do also play every day. I mean, it as we get older, it's less easy every day, no matter what. So I think that's wonderful that you can play a little bit every day.
I wanted to ask if Jessica Stevens or Kimberly Weber wanted to come off mute and tell us the instrument that they play and how they're doing with it. Jessica?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. First of all, thank you guys so much for doing this. It's been really nice to hear from other musicians that have had, have this issue. And I am a cellist. And
okay.
an orchestra teacher, middle school orchestra teacher.
Wow.
Where are you calling from?
Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Oh, nice. That's where my extended family is from. Yeah. So what form of myositis do you have?
I have dermatomyositis.
Okay. Does it have any muscle involvement, or is it just skin?
It does. I have more muscle involvement than skin. I did have the very classic rashes, which is how I was diagnosed, but it was very interesting. I had a very similar onset to what Marilyn described, having it be very quick and, finding it difficult. My instrument got heavier, and how difficult that was. And I was diagnosed 6 years ago. And I was extremely lucky that I was able to get into a rheumatologist fairly quickly and eventually find treatment that has worked well.
Are you able to play every day?
I do play every day with my students. I don't do all of the gigs and the private lessons that I once was able to do. Part of that is because of COVID and being immune compromised because of all of the drugs. But part of it is just the physicality of being able to play. But I am able to play every day with my students in all of my classes, and that is a wonderful thing for me.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing that. We really appreciate it.
I have dermatomyositis. I have dermatomyositis as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So can I ask you, are your fingertips really tender?
They aren't now. When I was first diagnosed, they were. I had all of the rashes around my cuticles, and it was very difficult, especially playing in thumb position, because I had rashes around there. So I was really thankful when those kind of went away. It made playing much easier.
I can relate to that. That's what happened to me too, along the edges of my fingernails in the cuticle area. So I remember having to wear gloves in order to wrap Christmas presents that year. Because everything hurt me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. A bad an extra thing on top of the polymyositis. Okay. Oh, I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Kimberly, did you want to share? Kimberly Weber, did you want to tell us where you're calling from and what?
Sure. Sorry, I was not expecting that.
I know, we're a small group, so I figured I'd just involve you guys, so.
Oh, okay. So I play the flute.
Oh, nice.
And I used to sing. I think that's actually when I first started to have symptoms was when I was teaching choir, and I just couldn't, my voice just kept going out. I mean, I had no strength in my voice. I was starting to have some problems with swallowing and choking and so on. Sorry, I had dermatomyositis. And then I started to notice it in the flute, and I have lung involvement as well. I have interstitial lung disease, so that was affecting my playing. And I, like everybody else, just such a journey and so much pain of emotional pain, psychic pain of being told you're faking, and get over it, try harder, all those things. But then I was started on steroids, and currently I'm on Plaquenil and on Cellcept, and I'm doing really well. They thought they'd do a trial of taking me off the Plaquenil, and that went very poorly. So now I'm back on, and I can really relate to that. Do what you can. And if it just means playing one song at a time and then resting, that's what I have to do. That's kind of what I have to do with my life in general.
How often are you able to play?
Well, I'm not playing gigs anymore, but I would say a couple times a month I can do it. The piano's easier for me. I can't really sing anymore at all. I mean, I can sing with my grandchildren, that sort of thing. But it's definitely hard, but you have to learn to take joy in what you can do. And I remember I went to the TMA conference a couple of years ago, and there was another musician there. I can't remember her name, but I was trying to find out about adaptive equipment, and there are some companies out there that make like arm supports and things like that. But I just I think I got disheartened at that point, and kind of stopped for a while. But I've always been a musician since I was 7 years old, and it's always been a huge part of my life. So even if I can just do it part of the time and help expose my grandchildren to it, then to me it's meaningful. It just sort of come full circle, I think. So
well, thank you so much. And where are you tuning in from?
Sacramento, California.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. I appreciate you sharing. And I want to thank our panelists today for being here, Marilyn McDonald and Susan McLean. Thank you both for being with us. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Nice meeting you all.
Right.
I am sorry, just give me a minute. I have some news. We are going to be starting a brand new webinar series in 2023. Every other month, we will share research insights on myositis by speaking with a different researcher about their work. Our first episode will be Tuesday, January 10th at 6 p.m. with Dr. Julie Pike. Check out our events calendar on our website to register. For TMA, I am Rachel Bromley. Good night.